Good evening, students. Welcome back to the class. And today we are going to discuss about human welfare and economic biology. Okay, some of the very important questions which are related to the topic human welfare and economic biology. So under this topic, you have the first question. Consider the following statements about Wetcher cattle breed. Wetcher is the world's largest cow. So second statement, it is indigenous breed found in Kerala. So its milk protein has medicinal value. Fourth statement, commonly used in farming as draught animal. So which of the statements given above are correct? Option A, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Option B, 1, 2 and 3. Option C, 2, 3 and 4. And option D, 3 and 4. Okay, now we'll look at the right answer. Others too, you can try to answer this question, students. So here we have the correct answer, and that is option C. Okay, 2, 3 and 4. So the second statement, third statement and fourth statement, all of these are correct according to this Wetcher cattle. So here this Wetcher cattle, it is a rare breed of Bos indicus. Okay, it is one of the rare breed found. So which belongs to Bos indicus and named after the village Wetcher. So this village is there in Konayam district of the state Kerala in India. Okay, it completely belongs to endemic to that Kerala district here. Okay, so sorry, Kerala state here, and it belongs to Konayam district, specifically under that Wetcher village. So completely endemic to this region, and it is one of the rarest organism found. Okay, rarest cattle found. So what is the importance, or what is the speciality of this cattle here? Let us understand that here its average length is 124 centimeter. Okay, the length of this animal, this cattle, is approximately about 124 centimeter, and height is 87 centimeter. So according to Guinness record here, it is noted as the smallest cattle breed found in the world. All over the world, when we are considering the different cattle, so when we are comparing all of these here, so this Wetcher cattle is one of the smallest breed, okay, smallest cattle breed found, specifically endemic to that Wetcher village, okay, which is specifically to that Kerala region. And here the milk obtained from this cattle, okay, the cattle that provides the milk, since it is a milk animals, so the milk is considered to have a medicinal properties. So it has a major medicinal properties which is used for different purpose. Okay, so unlike the other cattle, when we are looking comparing with that of the other cattle here, this animal, this Wetcher cattle, is the one that can resist a drought condition, that can even survive in very less quantity of the water. Okay, it can resist drought condition. And here the female Holstein is claimed to be the world's largest cow. Okay, so here we have this Wetcher cat. It is not the largest here. Okay, it is the smallest cow found here among the other different species. So that is the reason we can easily strike off this first statement. Okay, Wetcher cow. So it shows all the properties here, but it is the smallest cow, smallest cattle when we are looking at the rest of the cattle here. Okay, when we are comparing it with that of the other. So here we have the largest cow species, that is female Holstein. Okay, female Holstein is one of a cattle species, and that is the largest one found all over the world. Okay, now we'll move to the next question. Lactic acid is formed by the process of fermentation, glycolysis, citric acid cycle, P-oxidation. Okay. Okay, now we'll look at the right answer, students. So here we have the right answer, that is option A, fermentation. Okay, during fermentation process, there the citric acid is formed. Okay, whenever there is a fermentation of carbohydrates such as glucose, lactose, or sucrose, so when there is a, all of these are saccharide units, right? Glucose, lactose, and sucrose. When we are considering this, all of these are the different forms of carbohydrate itself. Okay, glucose, lactose, fructose, sucrose, galactose, maltose, all these are the different forms of carbohydrate. So when we are looking at all of this here, glucose is a monosaccharide, that is, it has only one saccharide, sugar unit, saccharide which is nothing but sugar unit. Lactose and sucrose, along with this, even maltose. So all these three belong to disaccharide since they contain two glucose unit. Okay, so when there is a fermentation of the same glucose, galactose, or the lactose, sucrose here, it usually produces lactic acid. Okay, when there is a fermentation of carbohydrate, that is the sugar group, it finally produces lactic acid in our body. Okay, that is where we can observe the fermentation process. Clear? So even here in this milk, that when we are considering here, so the lactic acid is formed. The major reason is there, the major reason present there was lactose. Lactose is the sugar unit present in the milk. Similarly, when our body doesn't get enough energy, when we are continuously rigorously working out, so enough oxygen has to be supplied to all the parts of our body to release energy. But when there is inadequacy of this, adequate amount of oxygen is supplied to all the parts of our body, in that condition, the cells that are present in the muscles will start releasing this lactic acid. Okay, from the pyruvate to lactic acid, it is then converted into lactic acid, during which it releases the energy. And that is where we can observe this anaerobic form of respiration. So usually fermentation takes place in anaerobic respiration mode. Okay, that is in the absence of oxygen, fermentation is then carried out here for the sugar units, which is then further converted into lactic acid. Okay, so when we are looking at the rest of the options here, glycolysis. Glycolysis is a process of converting glucose to galactose. Okay, excess amount of the glucose in our body is then further stored in the form of glycogen. Okay, whatever is required to our body, it is then supplied. But even though if we have excess amount of glucose in our body, that is then converted into glycogen to store it for temporary purpose for our future use. Okay, that process we call it as glycolysis. Similarly, when we are looking at the citric acid cycle, which we also generally call it as Krebs cycle. Okay, citric acid cycle is also known as Krebs cycle. So here in this Krebs cycle, a series of chemical reactions takes place. Okay, so it is to release the stored energy through oxidation of acetyl-CoA group. Okay, acetyl-CoA group will get oxidized to release energy, which is then stored previously. Okay, to release energy in that case. So that's complete cycle that we call it as citric acid cycle, or generally simply we call it as Krebs cycle. Okay, so then next we have P oxidation. P oxidation, which is nothing but phosphorus oxidation. This phosphorus, it exhibits in its oxidation form. Okay, so when we're looking at all of this here, fermentation is a process where lactic acid is formed by a process of fermentation. When there is a carbohydrate, will get fermented to form a lactic acid. Moving to the next question now. The aquatic form, which is an excellent biofertilizer, is Azolla, Salvinia, Margilia, Pteridium. Okay, now we'll look at the right answer here. The right answer is option A, Azolla. Okay, Azolla is a pteridophyte, or we also call it as aquatic plants. Okay, most of these Azolla, the leaves there in the water plant. Okay, that usually floats on the surface of the water, and it is also used as biofertilizer because it has a great association with that of nitrogen fixing bacteria. Okay, Azolla has a property of fixing nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. That is the reason we consider this as a biofertilizer. It is natural biofertilizer. It provides a nutrition that a plant requires. Okay, it acts as a natural biofertilizer, which helps us in nitrogen fixing. Okay, the same nitrogen is required for all the rest of the living organisms. It is then consumed by the plants to rest of the animals, even including us. When we are consuming the plant product, that enters our body too, right, during nitrogen cycle. So here the nitrogen fixing bacteria which is involving in this nitrogen cycle is cyanobacteria. Okay, cyanobacteria, Anabina, Azolla. So all of these are the bacteria which are involved, which are considered as biofertilizers, natural biofertilizers out of the given options. Okay, since it has a capacity to combine with that, to convert that of the atmospheric nitrogen into the soluble form of the nitrogen, we can consider this as biofertilizer. Okay, moving to the next question. Consider the following statements. The first statement here is gibberellins were discovered in rice plants. Dwarfness can be controlled by treating the plant with gibberellic acid. So vernalization can be replaced by gibberellins. So which of the statements given above is correct? So option A, 1 only. Option B, 2 only. Option C, 3 only. And option D, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, now we'll look at the right answer here. The right answer is option D. Okay, option D, 1, 2, and 3. So most of you are trying to answer the questions here. Very good. So now let us know about the answer here. So all the statements that we have, first, second, as well as the third, all of these are correct according to the hormone that we have here is gibberellins. Okay, gibberellin is one of a plant hormone. So basically these plants have 5 different hormones. So out of these 5 different hormones, gibberellins is one such. Okay, it is one out of it. So your gibberellins are the plant hormones that usually regulates various different body development. Okay, the different parts development in case of the plants here, which include stem elongation. The major purpose of this gibberellins hormone in case of plants is to elongate the stem so that the plant will grow in height. Okay, so by this we can understand that gibberellins are the one which are responsible for the height of the plant. As in when we can see the plants which are growing generally, okay, when growing in height, it's all because of the secretion of this gibberellins hormone, right? Gibberellin hormones there in case of plant. Not only stem elongation, it is also involved in germination of the seeds. So the seeds are then converted into seedling. That is a process of germination. Again, there is a role of gibberellins. Dormancy of the seeds, dormancy of a plant, okay, flowering, flower development, leaf as well as fruit senescence. So all of these development can be observed only when there is a presence of this gibberellin hormone. Okay, so initially for the first time these gibberellin hormones were discovered here in rice plants. Okay, when they started studying, when our scientists, botanists, they started studying all about a fungus here, one of a fungal species called Gibberella fujikurae. Okay, Gibberella fujikurae, it is one of a fungus. So when they started studying about this, they found this gibberellin hormones there in the case of rice plants for the first time. So by this we can say that, so the first statement that we have here is true, right? And here, as I was telling you that gibberellins are the hormones which are responsible for the elongation of the stem in case of plants, right? Dwarfism can be controlled by treating the plant with gibberellic acid, right? So dwarfism, so that is the plant will start growing well if there is no dwarfism. So if there is a dwarfism in case of plants, if the plant are then treated with this gibberellic acid, then definitely it will absorb the same hormone. It will develop the same hormone so that which will help them to grow well, grow in height. Okay, dwarfism can be controlled by this. So the second statement is also correct. When we are looking at the last year, vernalization can be replaced by gibberellins. Okay, so this vernalization which are necessary for the plants to flower up. Okay, for the plants to flower up, to develop the flowers, to develop, to make it bloom. So vernalization is the process that is necessary. So now this vernalization can also be replaced by gibberellins, right? So by cold treatment or by gibberellic acid, it also causes flowering as well as bolting in case of plants. So all of this process can be absorbed only when there is a hormone called gibberellin, one of the major hormones in case of plants. Move to the next question. Match the list 1 with list 2 and choose the correct code given below. Under this list 1, we have sericulture. Under list 2, we have beekeeping, pisciculture, rearing of silkworm, apiculture, micropropagation, tissue culture, fish farming. So here we have the options. Option A, 2413. Option B, 4231. And option C, 2431. Option D, 1234. No, not a right answer. So others, you can try to answer these questions. Okay, now we look at the right answer here. The right answer is option A, 2413. Now let us try to match this here. Sericulture. Sericulture is nothing but a branch of biology which deals with the study of, okay, silkworm, basically rearing of silkworm. Here in sericulture, it is one of an occupation where they will start rearing the silkworm by cultivating the mulberry leaves. If it is a mulberry silkworm, okay, so it is for industrial purpose. We know that it has a major advantage there in the industrial one, right? Textile industry, the silk cloth that we will use it worldwide. So here for the processing of the same, rearing of silkworm is done, and this complete process we call it as sericulture. Okay, so the next year we have a pisciculture, which is nothing but fish farming, fish that we use it as a food. The farming of the same is known as pisciculture. Okay, breeding or the consumption, everything which is related to this fish farming. Okay, the same we call it as pisciculture. And then apiculture. Okay, apiculture is nothing but beekeeping. Okay, beekeeping. It is a practice of rearing of bees for the production of honey. Okay, honeybees are reared here so that we will get honey out of it. To produce this, that complete process, we call it as apiculture. Tissue culture is nothing but micro propagation. Basically, the small part of the plant, or it can be animal, just a small few number of cells or small part of that plant body. Basically, the tissue is then extracted to culture it in an artificial environment, specifically there in the laboratory, by providing all the necessary condition for the same, for the growth of it, right? So it is then cultivated here. Okay, basically, if there is a presence of meristematic growth, that is what we actually look it for here in tissue culture. Okay, so because of this meristematic tissue, it is one of a tissue found in case of plants, that is the one which is necessary for the growth of the plant, right? So if there is a presence of meristematic tissue, then definitely that plant part, the tissue part that we have extracted will start growing well. Okay, by providing when there is a suitable climatic condition for the same, for the growth of this tissues usually. Okay, this complete procedure, complete process, we call it as micropropagation. Okay, so now moving to the next question. Match column 1 with column 2 and select the correct answer using the codes given below. Under this column 1, we have fish farming. Under this column 2, broiler, cattle used for tilling and carting, culture fishery. So option C, under column 1, chicken better fed for obtaining meat. Under this column 2, we have draught animals, beekeeping, it is apiculture. So here we have the options. Option A tells us that A, we have to match it with Q, B with R, C with P, and D with S. Option B. So here we have that A, we have to match it with R, B with Q, C with P, and D with S. Option C, A with R, B with Q, C with S, and D with P. Option D, A with R, B with S, C with Q, and D with P. Yes, very good. The right answers. Okay. Yes. Now we will look at the right answer here. The right answer is option A. So here we have this option A. Okay. So culture fishery. Okay. Culture fishery is nothing but the cultivating, rearing, and also harvesting of fish. So because fish is one of the food that we consume, right? Seafood. So here culturing of the same here for the consumption of the same, that we call it as completely together, we call it as culture fishery. So A can be matched with Q. Fish farming is nothing but culture fishery, right? Where we will rear it to use it as a food. Similarly, when we are looking at the B, the second statement that we have under this column 1, cattle used for tilling and carting. Basically, so these are the draught animals. Okay, basically the draught animals are the one which are used here for tilling as well as the carting. Okay, so draught animals are usually strong as well as sturdy. That is the major reason that can be used even here in drought case, drought conditions that can be used therein. So preparation of the land for the agricultural process, right? Cattle are you basically use there in preparation, that is specifically in plowing condition, plowing as well as even sowing the seeds. So there, these cattle are used as a drought animals for agricultural process. Okay, chicken better fat for obtaining meat, that is broiler. So we generally know this broiler or one of the major one that we will consume it as a food, right? So chicken, it is basically fed as a food here. Okay, that is a broiler one. Okay, broilers or chicken which are 7 to 8 weeks old and raised for meat. Specifically, it is for meat. That is to use it as a food. So which are then cultivated here. Sorry. So which are then reared here. Okay, specifically in a poultry form. So that is known as broiler here, which is used as a food. Beekeeping, as we had already discussed, it is apiculture. Okay, only to obtain, to produce, so that the bees will produce the honey. So to obtain that for the commercial usage, so this complete procedure we call it as apiculture. Okay, moving to the next question. The term probiotic is applied to organic food, antacid, antibiotic, live microbial food supplement. Okay, now we will look at the right answer here. The right answer is option D. Okay, live microbial food supplement. So here the term probiotic, it is applied to live microbial food supplement. So as a food supplement, we will consume this. Okay, and that is what we call it as, generally call it as probiotic. The term probiotic is applied to live microbial food supplement, and these are the live microorganisms which definitely provides us with health benefits when we consume it. So we will usually include it in our diet regularly. Okay, in our daily life, we will be using this microbial supplement, microbial food supplement in our diet, because that is the one which will provide some of the basic necessities, basic nutrients that is required for the healthy being of our body. Okay, if you have to be healthy, definitely we have to consume this. So some of the microbial food supplement that we will consume it in our India, such as yogurt. Yogurt, definitely there will be bacteria, right? Lactobacillus. Milk, definitely there will be a bacteria. To convert it into curd, again there in the curd there is a bacteria, lactobacillus, right? So it is a live microbial food supplement. So when we are consuming this milk, definitely we will get with nutritional benefits. Similarly, when we are consuming yogurt or the curd, the same thing. So there will be bacteria that enters our body along with some of the nutritional value that enters our body, right? Similarly, when we are talking about idli or dosa, definitely there will be a fermentation process which will be carried out here. During a fermentation process, there will be anaerobic bacteria. Okay, for the ferment, so that the batter that we will leave it overnight for the process of fermentation. So during this fermentation process, some of the bacteria which are taking role in the fermentation process. So definitely we will consume idli as a whole, right? So that bacteria enters our body, right? And again, yeast, when we are talking about yeast, bread, in the bread making process or the pastries or the cake making process, definitely the yeast are the one which are used. All these are microorganisms, it is a fungi, right? So that will then enter our body, right? So all of these are considered as a food supplement because they are beneficial to us, because it will provide a rich nutritional value to our body, in the diet that we consume. Okay, so when we are looking at the rest of the options here, organic food. Organic food is the one without using some of the synthetic fertilizers, we will grow this, right? Organic food supplement or the organic vegetable, organic fruits, they are the one which are grown without using synthetic chemicals, synthetic fertilizers. They are usually grown using a natural organic manure. And antacid are taken when there is high acidity in our stomach. When a person starts suffering from high acidity and some of the related symptoms, that is heartburn, ulcers in the stomach, so irritation, stomach irritation, because of all of these reasons, usually doctors will prescribe us with antacid tablet. Basically, milk of magnesia is prescribed here, magnesium hydroxide. It is a base, so when we consume that, acid and base reacts together to form salt and water, right? That is a neutralization. Acid effect can be minimized in our body, right? So that finally it relieves acidity condition when we are consuming this antacid tablets. Okay, so naturally at a house we can use baking soda as an antacid. Antibiotics or the medicines that they are the drugs that we will use it to fight off the infections that our body is suffering with. Okay, if there is any germ, specifically this bacteria or the fungus, if there is any infection because of this reason, because of this causative agents, definitely that can be suppressed when we are consuming this antibiotic drugs. Okay, that can minimize the infection condition, the load of this bacteria in our body. Okay, now move to the next question. Silk fibers are secreted by larva, pupa, cocoon, adult silk moth. Okay, now we'll know about the right answer. The right answer is option A, larva. Okay, so here when we are considering the silkworms, so this is a life cycle which is regarded to that of the silkworms, right? Silk fibers are obtained from silkworms. They will produce the silkworm. That is the reason that we will rear the silkworms to get the silk out of this, right? So here in its life stage, the first stage of the silkworm is the egg stage. Egg will hatch out. There we will get this larva, which is then followed by pupa, then cocoon, and then finally there we will observe the formation of silk moth, adult silk moth, right? So this is a complete life cycle of silkworm. So that we can see the sequential order here. But when we are looking at this here, larva is the stage. Larva, which we also call it as caterpillar. That is the stage. After the caterpillar stage, once it enters into the next stage, that is larva stage, there it will start secreting a proteinaceous layer. Okay, proteinaceous secretion, proteinaceous fibers here specifically, and it is all secreted from their salivary gland. That is the saliva of this silkworms actually. Okay, the silk fibers that we use in making cloths. So that is the saliva of this silkworms. Okay, from the salivary gland it is secreted and it is completely proteinaceous in nature. Due to this presence of proteinaceous in nature, that silk fibers appears very shiny, right? It has a more luster there. So it's all because of the proteinaceous content here in the saliva of fibers. Okay, it's all secreted by the larva stage of the silkworm, which will then turn into cocoon. To become a cocoon, to become pupa stage. So if there is a complete covering of the silk fibers around its body, then that stage we call it as cocoon. So it's all secreted in larva stage itself. It's not in cocoon stage. So by the end of this cocoon stage, so there will be complete development of this silk fibers around it. It would have wounded around it. Okay. So there will be complete covering on its surface of the body. So this is a stage where it starts secreting the silk fibers, which we will finally extract it out to form a silk fibers, which is then woven into a cloth, right? So out of the different types of the silk fibers, the best known silk is obtained from cocoon of one of a specific larva of the mulberry silkworm. Mulberry silkworm is the most common, most famous one, most known one, right? So the species which can produce this mulberry silkworm, it's all Bombyx mori. Okay, Bombyx mori. So here it has a great, when we are comparing it with the rest of the silkworm, it has a great, comparatively, it is more better. Okay, comparatively, the silk fibers that is obtained here in Bombyx mori, it is completely shinier, luster one. It has a more good properties here, which can be used, and it has a great commercial value. Okay, move to the next question now. Which of the following is not regarded as helpful to compost? Eggshells, sawdust, tea bags, fish bones. Okay, here the meaning of compost is decaying organic matter. So when we usually throw the wet waste, after some time, approximately after 20 days or 25 days, there we can see the formation of organic matter. Okay, this organic matter is the one which is used to grow the plants. That is because that provides a natural nutrient required for the growth of the plant. Okay, organic manure. So which is nothing but the compost. Okay, now we'll look at the right answer. The right answer is, yes, welcome. So the right answer is option D, fish bones. So there in the formation of this compost, as I was telling you that it is an organic matter. Okay, organic one where there is no usage of chemicals. So basically there in the, when we are talking about this compost, there are two different types. Okay, fertilizers are of two different types, organic fertilizer and chemical fertilizers. In the chemical fertilizers, basically the nitrogen or the phosphorus. So some of such chemicals are added. With the help of these chemicals, plant will grow well because it will get the specific nutrient that is required for the growth of its. Okay, but it is actually harming us. The chemicals will also enter our body. It destroys the soil structure, soil pollution, and different other causes that can be absorbed. But nowadays, the organic one is more famous. It is taking place, right? It is a new era that we can observe. Organic fruits, organic vegetables that we see around us in a market. So it's all made out of this, okay, where there will be usage of only the organic wet waste using this. So BBMP nowadays, they are collecting all the wet waste. So using this wet waste, they will convert it into compost. That is nothing but organic manure. So which is then necessary for the growth of the plant because that is the one which will naturally provide the nutrient required for the growth of the plant. Just like how we require nutrition for our growth, even plants too require this nutrition, so that it will absorb along with the water. Minerals will be then dissolved in the water. The same water is then absorbed by the roots of the plant. Okay, so this is how the nutritions, specific nutrients enter a plant, which is helpful for its growth. So here, when we are providing a compost for the plants, okay, for its growth, basically we are going to include, we can include eggshells. Okay, to make a compost, we can include eggshells, dry leaves, or the twigs, or any kitchen waste, wet waste that can be added. Okay, we should not use a plastic or any so dry waste there. So specifically wet waste, eggshells, sawdust can be added, and even tea bags. Okay, tea bags are the one which will actually provide a good nutritional value. Okay, so all of this, including all of this, when we are mixing it in soil, if there is a presence of earthworm in the soil, that will help for the formation of compost. Okay, that increases the rate of compost formation. And this can be done at home also. So basically at our house level. So when we are considering this, the last option, fish bones, we should not include this in making the compost because fish or the fish bones, when it is mixed with the water, mixed with the soil, there it will become rancid. That is, it will undergo a chemical reaction and it will also form a foul smell. The smell of it is completely different when it enters there. Okay, so it is a completely foul smell. So when there is a foul smell, definitely it will also attract the rodents. Rodents are then attracted towards this. So other unwanted animals will also enter the compost and completely it will spoil the compost structure itself. Okay, so that is the reason we should not include this fish bones there in making this compost. Moving to the next question. Sugarcane is one of the important cash crops in India. It is grown to obtain starch, glucose, fructose, sucrose. It's very good. The right answer. Okay, the right answer is option D, sucrose. Okay, as I was telling you that in the previous question, glucose is a monosaccharide, whereas this fructose and sucrose, okay, sucrose, lactose, maltose, all these are disaccharides, whereas this starch is a polysaccharide. Okay, that is, it has a more than 4 number of sugar units, glucose units. Glucose, it has only one sugar unit here. Okay, but when we are considering the question here, sugar cane, the stem of this sugar cane, which is juicy in nature, that we will usually consume as a food, right? So this sugar cane is one of the important cash crop. in India because it is grown to obtain sucrose. Sucrose is a sugar that we will get it out of the sugarcane stem, okay, that we commonly use in our daily life. So this is one of the most important cash crop, and it has high source of sucrose in it, okay, which is then finally extracted out of the sugarcane stem. Moving to the next question. Which one of the following microbes causes acidification and curding of milk? Lactic acid bacillus, Clostridium botulinum, Vibrio cholerae, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Yes, the right answer is correct. Okay, it is option A. So here we have the right option. Basically, when we are looking at the microbe that causes acidification and curding of milk. So when we usually place the milk or the curd exposed to the normal temperature without maintaining its temperature for longer period of time, there we can see, we can feel there will be a formation of acidification, right? It becomes more sour. The curd or the milk becomes more sour. It's all because of the growth of lactic acid bacillus. So this is the one which releases lactic acid into the milk or the curd, which results in the formation of sour taste. Okay, lactic acid bacillus. Lactobacillus is a bacillus. It is a bacteria that is the one which is actually present in milk as well as the curd. Okay, so this lactic acid curdles the milk. So as and when we keep this milk exposed to the normal temperature without increasing the temperature or without placing it in the refrigerator, if you're placing it in normal temperature more than 6 hours, usually the lactic acid bacteria which is present in the milk, it releases lactic acid into the milk. So when there is a more secretion of this lactic acid into the milk, that starts curdling the milk. That we can observe that, right, after 6 to 7 hours of the time. So the milk will start curdling up. That separates from the curds. So which are then used to produce cheese as well as the ghee. So in the formation of cheese and ghee, this is the one which is actually used, right, in making paneer or the yogurt here. So acidification of milk means lowering its pH. So pH level is lower, that is increase in acidity. Acidic content is increased here. By lowering the pH, definitely, as in when we go below the pH scale. So 0 to 14. So 7 is the neutral one. But as in when we go, the normal pH level of this will be till here. That is approximately about 6.8, 6.7. Okay, but as in when there is an decrease in this pH value, that means it becomes more acid. So acid content in this milk increases as in when we go decreasing this pH level, right? It causes the milk protein to unwind and unfold in this process, which we generally call it as protein denaturing. The milk protein will start unwinding in this condition when there is more amount of acid in the milk. Okay, that we generally call it as protein denaturing. Okay, so here lactic acid does not process in case of milk. It doesn't process anything there in the case of milk. Okay, so this is all about lactic acid bacillus, which has a major role in the formation of curd and other milk products too. So when we are looking at this Clostridium botulinum, okay, Clostridium botulinum, that is the one which will cause intestinal infection. So when we are consuming uncooked, okay, properly, if the food is not cooked properly, if you are consuming the same, so if the spores of this Clostridium botulinum, if it is present in the food and if you're consuming the same, so definitely that enters along with our diet. So now, as and when it is there in our body, it causes intestinal infection. Okay. In children, in infants specifically, it is more fatal. Okay. There is a more chances of death. So Vibrio cholerae, that is the one which is present in contaminated water. So now we are consuming this contaminated water. This Vibrio cholerae enters our body and causes a disease called cholera, as we discussed in the previous slides, right? Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So this Saccharomyces cerevisiae, specifically, it causes chronic diseases. That is the disease which retain within us for a longer period of time, like cancer, immunosuppression, because it suppresses our immunity system itself. Okay, endocarditis, that is the weakening of our heart muscle, pneumonia, urinary tract infection. All these are the secondary symptoms observed when the Saccharomyces cerevisiae enters our body. Clear? Moving to the next question. It is said the Taj Mahal may be destroyed due to flood in Yamuna River, decomposition of marble as a result of high temperature, air pollutants released from oil refinery at Mathura. Option D, all of the above. Just a minute, students. Okay, so here we have the right answer, that is option C, air pollutants released from oil refinery of Mathura. Okay, basically this Mathura refinery is also there in Agra itself, where nearby this Taj Mahal. So it was in the news allegedly causing this white marble, the white marble of this Taj Mahal to turn into yellowish color, right? So Taj Mahal is whitish in color. The marble of this is whitish in color. Slowly it is turning into yellow color. Okay, it's all because of the, so now because of this reason, to know the cause of this color change here, our Indian government hired a panel system. Okay, it hired a panel here. So who has to examine the effects of this Mathura refinery? So if there is any relationship for the turning of this Taj Mahal into yellow color and the emissions of this refinery. So finally, this panel found out that the air which is nearby this Mathura refinery and the Taj Mahal, it was all contaminated with that of suspended particulate matter. Okay, the small suspended particulate matter in the air which is causing air pollution. Along with that, which is all caused because of that Mathura refinery. Okay, the emissions of this refinery, along with the dust, construction, and also exhaust from automobiles. So after the combustion, the exhaust, the smoke which is released into the atmosphere, all of these are the major reasons for the Taj Mahal to turn into yellowish color, right? So later after this, so Mathura refinery is then shifted away from Taj Mahal based on the government orders. Okay, this is a major cause for the Taj Mahal to turn it into yellow color, to lose its luster. Okay, move to the next question now. For retting of jute, the fermenting microbe used is methophilic bacteria, Clostridium botulinum, Helicobacter pylori, Streptococcus lactin. Okay, now we look at the right answer here. The right answer is option B, Clostridium botulinum. So this is one of the species of organism which is necessary for the retting process of jute. So what is this retting? Retting is one of a process. So basically jute fibers are extracted from the stalk of the jute plant by different processes. Okay, by different retting process specifically. Retting can be done by microbial process, microbial retting, chemical retting, mechanical retting, or it can be water retting too. Okay, so they will leave. Here we are considering microbial retting process. Retting is one of a process which is done to extract that fibers from the jute stalk. So which is then used to make a fabric, jute fabric, okay, which is then further converted into gunny bags that we know about, where there is application of this jute fibers to make a rope or to the mat, carpets, right? So now here in the retting process, specifically when we are considering this microbial retting process, Clostridium botulinum is one such species which is necessary for this retting process. Okay, so this is the one that involves dissolving of plant tissues in the presence of microorganisms and moisture. So both of these are necessary for dissolving the plant tissues. Okay, which is all controlled by microbial decomposition. Okay, this microbes that we are adding to this jute fibers during retting process, it will decompose the pectin. Okay, pectin without simultaneous decomposition of fibers. So only the pectin part of that plant part. Okay, the plant cell, external part of the plant cell wall is all made out of pectin. To decompose this, retting is done, microbial retting is done, which will finally give us the strong, lustrous, long thread, that is the fiber, which is then used to wove a cloth. Okay, so it's all facilitated by anaerobic bacteria, that is the bacteria which can act only when there is absence of oxygen, such as Clostridium botulinum, along with the species, okay, Clostridium botulinum that we have here in the options given. Along with that, here we have few more, that is Clostridium tetani and also Clostridium perfringens. So all these are different species of Clostridium which has a major role in retting process of jute. Okay, moving to the next question. Which one of the following is not a nitrogen fixing organism? Anabina, nostoc, Azotobacter, Pseudomonas. Okay, now we look at the right answer. The right answer is option D, Pseudomonas. So out of the given options here, all these three are considered as nitrogen fixing organisms. Okay, all these are nitrogen fixing bacteria. That is, they will convert the atmospheric nitrogen into soluble form of the nitrogen, because nitrogen, the different compounds of the nitrogen is necessary for the normal growth of the plant, right? That is one of the nutrition that is required for the plant growth. So since this plant cannot use this atmospheric nitrogen directly, some of the bacteria which are present in the root nodules of the plant will help them to fix this atmospheric nitrogen by converting into different compounds of this nitrogen. So in that process, Anabina, Nostoc, as well as Azotobacter, all of these are involved in fixing this atmospheric nitrogen in the plants. Okay, but here the Pseudomonas is not the one which is considered as a nitrogen fixing organism. Okay, it is not, it cannot fix the atmospheric nitrogen here because it is a saprophytic bacteria. Saprophytes are the one which will feed upon the dead and decaying organic matter. Okay, so even here the Pseudomonas is one such organism which feeds on dead and decaying organic matter. That is the reason this is used for the biodegradation of organic pollutant like petroleum spillage. If there is any petroleum spillage, to degrade this organically, this Pseudomonas are the species which are used. Okay, so that we can choose this option. Moving to the last question that we have here under this topic is BOD of wastewater is estimated by measuring the amount of total organic compound, biodegradable organic matter, oxygen evolution, oxygen consumption. Okay, now we'll look at the right answer here. The right answer is option D, oxygen consumption. So based on the amount of oxygen which is utilized by these microorganisms, BOD is measured. Okay, BOD is nothing but a biological oxygen demand. So here we have the option, that is fourth option, D option is the one which is right, oxygen consumption. Okay, BOD, which is nothing but biological oxygen demand. Okay, there is a demand for the oxygen supply in a liquid. Okay, for example, if you are considering the water, 1 liter of water here, the quantity of the oxygen which is utilized by the bacteria, oxidization done by bacteria, that gives us the value of this biological oxygen demand. The demand for this oxygen in the water, okay, is measured by the amount of oxygen that would be consumed when all the organic matter in 1 liter is oxidized by bacteria. So organic matter, definitely it will be there in the water. When we take the water, for example, if you take this river water or the salt water, that is the marine water, ocean water, so there will be organic matter which is present here in this 1 liter of the water that we have taken as a sample, right? And the natural bacteria which is also present in this water, okay, it will start utilizing, it will start degrading that organic matter. The bacteria will start degrading the organic matter in the presence of oxygen, because here it is utilizing the oxygen for the decomposition process. Okay, so here by this finally after this process we will get to know the amount of oxygen it has been utilized for the degradation process. Okay, that gives us the value of this biological oxygen demand. Okay, the amount of oxygen consumed by, utilized by the bacteria for oxidization of organic matter. Okay, BOD of what wastewater is estimated by the amount, by measuring the amount of oxygen consumption by these bacteria. Specifically, BOD is measured to know about the organic matter. Okay, to know the consumption, to know the wastewater. Okay, to know the quantity of the waste which is actually present in that wastewater. To estimate this, so BOD is carried out, right? To know about the biological oxygen demand. So the amount of, if the amount of oxygen is utilized by the water is more, then there will be more amount of wastage in that water. Okay, by this we will get to know which is necessary in treating the wastewater. Okay, to convert it into normal water, to treat this water. Okay. Okay. So students, in this class, we have discussed about the topic human welfare and economic biology. So some of the important questions that we really discussed in this topic, I hope it's all understood to you. Thank you for attending the class.